Is Sean Payton the perfect person to evaluate and develop talent at the quarterback position, Todd?
I would say yes. I think that not only what he did with Drew Brees, but also the other laundry list of quarterbacks that he had while he was there, they all did better in a lot of areas. I think Jameis Winston had a lot less interceptions. I think he played better. I think Taysom Hill never is Taysom Hill without Sean Payton.
Yep.
So I think he's done a good job with evaluating quarterbacks and kind of getting the best out of them. Not everybody's going to be a Hall of Famer because not everybody has the mental plus the physical abilities to do so.
Yeah.
But I think no matter who you are, he can make you better than you were before.
Yeah, that was my issue. The mental plus the physical.
Which one? Both?
So,
Just
yeah.
No, the
combo?
plus. It was the combination. Yeah, not
okay.
everybody has all that.
Yeah, the physical, just not the mental.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, he's good. Yeah, I think
Wow.
that.
Okay, not
No.
very high.
I was just
on him.
thinking.
That's
No, I
fair.
think.
Explain
Russell
why.
Wilson,
but
did he not bring back Russell Wilson? He said clear.
True. But remember what you
Brought
were
him
saying
back.
about Michael Penix like months and months and months ago, and then he winds up being number 8 in the draft? That's a pretty good evaluator.
Oh, I'm not saying that I'm not nice too.
Okay,
I'm just giving him his
You're on a
props.
podcast. He's like, yeah, the guys are good at that.
And you think he's just one of them, but not necessarily better than.
So it's tough when it comes
better
to
than Todd.
evaluator. Evaluator's like, okay, I see what you're doing, and you're gonna be great. Did that with Drew Brees. Give him credit. He was right about that. What happened to Jameis Winston? He got the most out of him, but it's not like Jameis Winston's now an All-Pro. Like what happened with Teddy Bridgewater? Maybe got the most out of him. Again, not like he was like this great quarterback who had been forgotten. You know, like he did good work, but I wouldn't say he has just consistently found diamonds in the rough after diamond in the rough. He did with Drew Brees, who had already made a Pro Bowl.
He did it with Drew Brees, where he took him from a borderline Pro Bowler, because he wasn't like a 5-time Pro Bowler before coming to Sean, and then he turned him into a Hall of Famer, one of the top 10 best quarterbacks to ever play, probably, without a doubt. And then he took, I like what you said, Todd, every other person that he worked with, he bumped their game up to another level. And if you try to look back at other coaches like Bill Belichick, yes, he helped turn Tom Brady into Tom Brady. He wasn't able to do that. He wasn't able to give a bump to anyone else. And so you look and Andy Reid did it with Donovan McNabb. Took him, they went to 3 or 4 straight NFC championship games. Was never able to win it, but had a ton of success with him. Then obviously a lot of success with Alex Smith. Then obviously tremendous amount of success with Patrick Mahomes. So you might point to Andy Reid and be like, there's history to show that he can do it better than Sean consistently. Okay, but we're talking about like one other person that might be better than him. Like we saw it with Mike Shanahan. He did it with John Elway, without a doubt. But John Elway was also already John Elway at that point, but he was able to get him over the mountaintop. Then he was good, very good with Jake Plummer. And then Jay Cutler, we saw some flashes before Mike was fired and the Broncos went a different way at both coach and quarterback there. But, I mean, it's really difficult to do. In history will show you it's difficult to do what Sean Payton did. And the reason that we have this question is from our friend Arvada Luke in the DNVR Diehard mailbag. He says, I like the David Shaw hire. I think that hiring talent evaluators can be a great way for owners to spend money improving the team without cap implications. I always thought Elway was pretty good at getting quality defense on this team, while ironically being pretty terrible at getting quality quarterbacks. Are former players better at evaluating their opposing position than the position they played? If so, what position would be best to evaluate quarterbacks? Is it inside linebacker, Todd?
I feel like I would be a good evaluator of quarterbacks. I probably feel like I'd be the most honest. I don't think the height or the arm strength would dazzle me. So maybe.
Good.
I could dazzle you.
So maybe
He's still waiting.
So maybe that is true. Maybe it is easier, because I'm always going up against the quarterback. I have to know so much about the quarterback, even though I haven't played the position. I know what it looks like for a quarterback to have success against the defense. So maybe that does play into it. But I don't know why there's some people out there that can't do it right. There's a lot. Like we talk about Sean, and we feel like he can. There's a lot of people who get it wrong all the time.
It really is insane how many people get it wrong. And in my head, I feel I'm more aligned with you, Todd, on how we view quarterbacks. Like, sure, you want them to have an arm and they have to be able to throw the football. But if they're playing at high-end college football, they probably meet all of those. It's the mental that so many people just overlook. And it's like year in and year out, it seems so obvious. And obviously Paxton is a perfect example of this. He had the physical tools to be one of the best quarterbacks ever. To me, it was pretty clear that he did not have that mental side, but John Elway must have just been blown away by the physical tools, so went out and used that on him. But there's not many Josh Allens where they're not accurate in college, and they have the physical tools. You're not really sure about the mental tools, and then they do develop those. That typically doesn't happen. There's a reason why Josh Allen's like one of one right now when it comes to like not being very good at key things in college and then being really good at them in the NFL. And that's all credit to Josh Allen. But there's not many of those guys where they just like completely turn in the NFL.
Yeah.
There's also the flip side of that, though, where like Mac Jones was seen as somebody who has all the mentals, just didn't have the physical stuff. And so he didn't work out. Kenny Pickett falls in that same boat. Like there is this list of guys.
Mac is different, though. He had what do they call them? Extenuating circumstances? What's it called?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The Patriots just suck.
Defensive coordinator as his play caller. Yeah, not
that's
quite
true.
Sure.
But I mean, Kenny Pickett, I got to think through some of these.
I don't know if Kenny Pickett had like the mentals.
I think so. I mean, he definitely had the physical stuff. Like that's the reason he was a first round pick was because of production, because he ran like a real offense,
Yeah.
The mentals is like
blown away by
Andrew Luck. Like I know from jump,
he had everything.
Everybody talked about Andrew Luck, like his mentality as well as his physical ability. But like his mental was like he was an engineer plus a double major. Like you knew he was super smart. And I think that's what,
true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a different level. I guess it's probably too early to look at the most recent guys, but like
Tom Brady, a guy that didn't have the physical tools yet had the mental tools.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird. He also developed the physical tools. Like he did wind up getting like the bigger arm.
He did.
Yeah. A lot of these guys just don't really have much of anything in hindsight.
So I think this is such
Desmond Ridder.
I think this is such an interesting question from Ivada Luke because it is true and it is like mind blowing. You would have thought John Elway would have been able to identify great quarterback play because he knew what it took. But I do think that there's something to it that great players don't necessarily know how to find the greatness because they've just always had it. And they don't know exactly what to look for because it's like internal and they don't reflect on themselves that much. They just try to work on getting themselves better. I actually think a position and why I asked the question to start with Sean Payton that might be one of the best at evaluating quarterbacks is backup quarterbacks. And that sort of mold, Sean Payton, kind of a backup quarterback. He played quarterback in college, and I think you can point to a lot of guys that were Gary Kubiak, a backup quarterback in the NFL, or didn't have the physical tools to necessarily make it to the NFL or succeed at the NFL next level. Those are guys that become really good coaches because they are kind of a coach when they're a backup quarterback, especially if they're in certain situations. So they already have that, and then they can identify what makes another good quarterback good and separate themselves. And this is the Sean Payton mold. Now, obviously, you can have good former defensive players also have this, but I just think the backup quarterbacks kind of have that jump already because they've kind of been a coach already, and Sean does have that in his background. So he's been, working with quarterbacks since he was, in middle school or something like that, and then just continuing to develop as he actually became a coach. Is there something to that, Todd?
Yeah, I completely agree. As a backup quarterback, you have to know all the checks, all the alignments, all the assignments, and although you don't get to always display it, you can really critique a lot of times what the starter is doing. And it's constantly watching tape and constantly seeing where they're messing up and where they're making the right plays. The only difference is you never had to voice to somebody how to fix it.
Right.
But I think, being able to see it has definitely given him a leg up, being in those rooms for so long. I think that's part of the reason why Peyton Manning and Eli were so successful. They were doing it for so long, and they had been watching film since like 7 years old. They had been with a Pro Bowl quarterback as a father. Like that kind of like detail that you get from years of learning things, I think it's unmatched. So I think that's why he's very successful.
So backup quarterbacks and inside linebackers are the best at evaluating quarterback talent.
For sure, without
That's what
a
we're
doubt.
coming to. Yep.
Again, I still stand by, like,
Okay.
he only found one good quarterback. You know? Sean Payton. Like, to me, he hasn't proven himself as a quarterback evaluator. He's proven himself as, like, a quarterback maximizer or developer or those sorts of things. Like, he's very good at getting the most out. But, like, I wouldn't say, again, that he's gone out and found guys. Like, you look at the draft picks, there are a couple 7th-round guys. Those were never going to hit. A couple 4th-round guys, Jake Haener, Ian Book. Again, like, the odds are slim. They drafted Garrett Grayson. He did in the 3rd round. It's not like he found these diamonds in the rough. Like, really, he's found one guy. And, again, credit to him for doing it. A lot of people never find a guy. But I wouldn't say that there's this, like, long track record of him finding good players. Like, he made the most of Teddy Bridgewater. He made the most of Jameis Winston. And all credit to him for that. But I think that's a little bit different conversation than, like, evaluating guys, you know?
But didn't he find Teddy Bridgewater because Teddy Bridgewater was a free agent and he identified him as someone that he could work with, and Teddy comes in and goes 5-0 in the 5 games they start. So I'd say his evaluation was way better than the rest of the league, because the rest of the league probably said if they would have thought he could go 5-0, the rest he would have been signed right away. And then Jameis, you mentioned him. Jameis, he went 5-2 in the 7 games that he started with Sean Payton. 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's pretty good evaluation, and then turning that evaluation into reality. And you say that Sean has only found one guy. Well, it's because he had him for 13 of his 15 seasons.
Totally.
So these other 2 years, I just identified 2 other guys that he had massive success with.
Oh, he had massive success, but I still look at those and say, like, what did Jameis do after that? You know, what did Teddy do after that? Because if you really found somebody who's that good, he would be good regardless. I think Sean made them good. I don't think he found somebody who, like, was overlooked. I think that he's just a really, really good coach, and so he turned him into something. Because otherwise, Teddy Bridgewater would have gone on to the next team and still put up the same numbers. I give all that credit to Sean. I don't think that he found anything unique. I don't think that he... I don't know. He just maximized what they were, and credit to it. Like, I think that's even more impressive than being able to, like, discover guys. But in terms of, like, evaluating, I don't know that he did anything special there.
I don't know if I'm able to follow that path that you're going down of if he had tremendous success with guys that he evaluated and then signed. I give him credit for the evaluation process there.
I think I think that he just brought in a guy who did basically the same thing he'd done in his career, but he heightened it. No, he took him up.
Jameis was 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions.
But at the same time, like, he didn't find a guy who was overlooked. You know, Jameis did what he did, and then he went back to being that guy as soon as he left. Like, I don't think that if Jameis had wound up being that guy forever, then he would have found a good football player. I think he turned Jameis into a good football player while he had him. I think there's a big difference.
But I think...
if we're talking evaluation.
But I think that they go hand in hand, because I think I watched film, I evaluated you and saw what you needed to be, what did you needed to be successful, and then when you came here, I implemented that.
Yeah.
And then when I left, you didn't have that anymore, so that's why you weren't successful. So I had to evaluate to figure out what you needed, and I did it.
Yeah, I agree with that. But then when you're talking big picture, like, you're drafting a quarterback, you know... I think evaluating who are the good ones in this bunch, there is a portion of that the coaching does learn from that and say, okay, here's what you do when you get one of those guys. But I wouldn't say that he's shown, I can tell you which of these guys is the best or is, like, proven. Again, he says, like, he loved Patrick Mahomes, but I think what you really like about Sean is that he knows how to use guys, which to me is different than saying, like, hey, first rounder, second rounder, top 10 pick, you know?
I see what you're saying, and I just disagree on that, but I think that's just maybe something we agree to disagree on, but I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I guess regardless, all of us would take the approach that Bo Nix is in good hands, and it probably means something that Sean identified him. Do you agree with that?
Yes, and I think I agree with Hank a little bit. I think I would agree with you more if he was missing on first rounders.
True.
He wasn't taking first rounders.
Exactly.
So I think his formula was go get a veteran and mix him with a third or a seventh rounder, and I see what I can do there. But if he was, like, constantly picking in the first round and constantly missing, I would say, like, yeah, maybe he's not good at evaluating. But I can't say that a third or a seventh round quarterback is supposed to be anything good.
Exactly. Right. And I totally agree. Like, I wouldn't say he's like a bad quarterback evaluator or anything, but I would say like, if you're talking about, I don't know, like you're playing 2K and they give like your 5-word description of who a guy is, like Sean Payton, I'm not saying like quarterback evaluator, I'm saying like quarterback maximizer. Like, that's his calling card. It's not that he like finds these guys that nobody else would think you could get anything from. It's that he knows how to coach all of them and he elevates them, or his offense elevates them, whatever it may be, which again is like a tiny, it's a very small detail, and in the long run it doesn't really matter. But when we're just talking like when the question's about evaluating, to me that's not what stands out about Sean Payton. What stands out about Sean Payton is the coaching and the maximizing and what you're able to get out of a guy like Jameis, who, again, everybody kind of written him off.
That's fair.
And it turned out they were kind of right to do so, because without somebody like Sean Payton, he really hasn't been valuable in any way.
I feel like we should put our evaluation skills to the test.
We should.
And just every year, we pick out of the draft who we feel like is going to be the best quarterback.
Okay.
Based off of film. And then in 5 years, we'll be able to see 5 draft picks and be like, we were right, we were wrong, we were nice, or we were poor.
Maybe we should do that for a podcast this week. Like, let's stake our claim, especially because I almost think
Tuesday's show.
Yeah, I think it's useful to know what team they're on.
Can't take my guy though. This year, this is my guy.
Hey, we can all say 10 stars. No, it's not a
joke. Talk about him all year.
If we all say he's going to be an A+,
nope, you got to pick somebody else.
People
you
remember.
can have Penix this year. He's not doing anything this year.
No, for
he might though. Depends on that Achilles.
That's a good point.
Kirk can't push off.
So stay tuned to that. Maybe on Tuesday's show. Final thing, just because we were talking about Teddy. You know who he had? Teddy had his best touchdown to interception ratio with in his career.
Yeah, actually, I have his stats right here.
Oh God, Henry's gonna cheat on this.
Are you talking about a coordinator?
Just
or
what team?
Broncos.
That was number 2.
Dang.
Saints with Sean Payton, showing that he maximized 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and evaluated properly. And then Broncos number 2. According to that stat alone, that was his second best year in the NFL. Teddy was actually a good quarterback for the Broncos. 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. We're looking for a 2.5 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio from Bo Nix this year. Teddy did it. So maybe we'll get that from Bo with Sean this year.
Yeah.
Leave your comments if you want them to be read on the DNVR mailbag over at thednvr.com, on any of our podcasts or this mailbag post, and we will read them next week. Thanks for tuning in.
We all silly like the mayor.